My husband feigned a lingering illness, and my mother-in-law summoned a Taoist priest. The priest determined that a woman with a specific birth chart was needed to ward off misfortune. Coincidentally, a distant cousin residing in our household met the criteria. With tears in my eyes, I finally agreed with a bitter smile to marry that cousin as a secondary wife. The moment I turned away, I ordered the medicine to be replaced. If you enjoy feigning illness, I'll help you play the part convincingly. Strike while the iron is cold, take your life. During the meal, my mother-in-law suddenly began wiping away tears. The new year approaches, and while other households are filled with festive cheer, who knows when hunger's illness will finally abate? My spoon paused mid-sip as I too lowered my head with a sigh. Outside the window, snowflakes drifted down in a steady fall, painting a scene of utter desolation. My husband, Qin Jiheng, the legitimate son of the Marquis, caught a cold a month ago. For some reason, his condition has not improved. Instead, he grows weaker and weaker, confined to bed. We've consulted numerous physicians, yet none have identified the cause. Wang, the matron serving my mother-in-law, suddenly spoke up. Madam, young madam, this servant finds the young master's illness rather peculiar. Perhaps we should invite a master practitioner to examine him? A master practitioner? Is that reliable? My mother-in-law's eyes brightened, though her expression remained hesitant. Maid Wang hesitated before adding, I've heard of a Taoist master named Master Shukong at the temple east of the city. He cured the eldest and second daughters of the Li family, who were both mentally impaired. Yes, I know. There was such a case. Seeing this, I quickly inquired about Master Shukong. He was said to be quite skilled, though not everyone could afford to invite him. It depends on fate. I sneered inwardly. What fate? A fate worth 50 taels of silver? My mother-in-law tentatively asked. Ruoshu, do you think this is feasible? Watching them play off each other, my eyes stung slightly as I replied earnestly. As long as it helps Jiheng recover faster. Your daughter-in-law is willing to try anything. My mother-in-law nodded approvingly and immediately ordered someone to invite Master Su Kong to the home mansion. I chatted with her for a while longer, then saw she was growing weary and returned to my chambers. On the way, I asked my maid Baiji, how is my husband today? Baiji's expression turned sullen. At noon, the young master's attendant secretly brought him a huge pork knuckle. He devoured the entire thing, his mouth glistening with grease. Madam, the young master clearly recovered long ago. Why didn't you call him out? I pulled my cloak tighter around me, saying nothing. I simply wanted to see what he intended to achieve by all this commotion. The next day, Master Su Kong was summoned to the estate. He held a silver bell, circling the room 3 times before producing yellow talisman papers, which he lit and burned while chanting incantations, a rather intimidating spectacle. After a long while, he delivered his verdict. The swiftest cure for this ailment is to marry a woman with a specific birth chart to ward off misfortune. Finding such a match will prove difficult. Nanny Wang couldn't contain herself and gasped. Oh, the young lady fits the description. After speaking, she shot me a quick glance, then lowered her head as if realizing she'd said too much. It was true. I was the legitimate daughter of the Minister of Revenue. My father and 2 brothers held positions in the imperial court, and my mother came from a distinguished noble family. My maternal clan's influence was at its zenith, but the Marquis' household has only declined over the years. Back then, Qin Jiheng vowed to marry only me, swearing never to take a concubine. Now, it seems an impossible choice. My heart ached. My mother-in-law gazed at me with hopeful eyes. The entire courtyard fell silent. Everyone seemed to be waiting for my decision. They appeared to respect my choice, but in truth, they were roasting me over a fire. I asked, has Jiheng agreed? Though frail, Qin Jiheng could still speak. My mother-in-law's eyes flickered as she took my hand. Ruoshu. I know this is unfair to you. But he is my only son. Could you bear to watch Heng die? I understood then, Qin Jiheng was willing too. He let his mother-in-law do all the talking. Good and bad. While he hid in his room, reaping the rewards. All this turmoil was just to marry that cousin, Gu Qianqian. And it was marriage. Not a concubine, he wanted her as an equal wife. My eyes instantly reddened. And a single tear fell. Seeing my grief, my mother-in-law feigned concern, dabbing at non-existent tears with her handkerchief. Ruoshu. I know full well how deeply you and Hunger love each other. But this happened so suddenly, your mother cannot bear to see you grieving over Hunger's illness day after day. I truly have no other choice. So many doctors failed to cure Hunger. Yet now we finally have a solution. Alas. She wore an expression of concern for me yet helplessness, to any observer. The very picture of a loving mother-in-law. Deeply worried for her own son. To say my heart didn't ache would be a lie. But I understood all too well that this tear was shed for myself. I had gambled my entire life on a man's vow. And in the end, I had lost. My cousin, Gu Qianqian, had been in this household for less than half a year. Yet Qin Jiheng and I have been married for 5 years. All this painstaking effort stemmed from my refusal to bear the shame of breaking my vow, while also hoping to secure my cousin's status as a co-wife. That carefree youth who once reached out to me from his horse, he turned out to be a faithless coward. In that instant, my heart made its choice. The dignity and composure befitting a noble lady allowed me to maintain my poise, preventing me from accusing him like a madwoman. I sighed, my cousin possesses a beauty as radiant as flowers and as pure as the moon. I fear she would not consent to be Jiheng's concubine. Upon hearing I designated her as a concubine, my mother-in-law's eyes flickered. She followed my lead. Indeed, Qianqian comes from a scholarly family. To be a concubine would truly be beneath her. Since you've always been so understanding, Ruoshu, why not let Qianqian be a nominal equal wife? Within this marquis's mansion, no one could ever shake your position. Hesitation crossed my face. Mother-in-law. Only lowly merchants of that sort have the custom of taking equal wives. Moreover, the triennial performance evaluation is in 2 months. If it affects Jiheng's assessment, it would be most unfortunate. Hearing this, mother-in-law also fell silent. Gu Qianqian bore a striking resemblance to her younger self. With her sweet tongue and knack for flattery, she truly pleased her. Though I came from a noble background, I was too stiff and formal, lacking Qianqian's gentle charm. That was why she had acquiesced to her son's reckless behavior. Yet no matter how fond she was of Qianqian, her heart belonged solely to her son, Qin Jiheng. If this truly jeopardized Qin Jiheng's official career, it would be a case of losing more than one gains. Seeing my mother-in-law's troubled expression, I exchanged a glance with Baiji beside me. Baiji understood immediately and exclaimed with delight, "Madam, young madam, I know someone whose birth chart is perfectly compatible. It's Xiao Huan, the maid in our courtyard. Given her status, even marrying the young master for good luck would be a huge leap up for her. She'll surely agree." I stifled a laugh and spoke before the mother-in-law could respond. "That's wonderful. No need to inconvenience my cousin then. Quickly, bring her over for us to see." With that, I sent someone to fetch Xiao Huan. The mother-in-law looked at her and her face twisted with disdain. Xiao Huan was plain-looking, dressed in the clothes of a lowly maid, and seemed to carry a faint stench. "What do you do, girl?" the mother-in-law asked. Xiao Huan stepped closer, curtsied timidly, and replied, "Madam, I empty the night pots." The mother-in-law's expression changed instantly. She quickly stepped back and dismissed the girl. Such a foul-smelling night soil girl, even as a concubine. She'd be an insult to Hunger. The mother-in-law could only tell me to leave Gu Qianqian's persuasion to her, saying I needn't trouble myself. But if Qianqian is taken in and Jiheng's illness shows no improvement, won't that delay my cousin's prospects? I asked. Mother spat 3 times on the ground. Qianqian's face radiates fortune, she'll surely bring good luck. Besides, Master Su Kong said that with a wedding to ward off misfortune, Hunger will recover within 3 days. I could only let her proceed. The next day, Gu Qianqian told me with reddened eyes that she was willing to humble herself as a concubine, begging only for her cousin's health. Sister Ruoshu, rest assured, I won't compete with you for his affection. I heard mother-in-law promise to compensate her by granting 2 shops later on. Watching Gu Qianqian's delicate, willow-like figure, I smiled faintly. A sickly beauty, how perfect. May she carry all her illness to Qin Jiheng. The matter was settled, awaiting only an auspicious date. Bai Ji felt deeply aggrieved for me, madam. How could they conspire to bully you like this? Let's return to the Ministry of Revenue Mansion and tell father and mother. They must stand up for you. I shook my head. Once a daughter marries, it becomes inappropriate to constantly trouble her natal family. Besides, what good would a scene accomplish? Driving Gu Qianqian away would only drive a wedge between Qin Jiheng and me, breeding resentment. Gu Qianqian would become the very person he could never have. I had already sent people to investigate. It turned out Gu Qianqian and Qin Jiheng had known each other since childhood, developing feelings for one another at the old Qin residence. Bringing Gu Qianqian here was entirely Qin Jiheng's idea. My people found their old letters in her room. One read, "The bright moon carries my longing." Calculating the date, it was the Mid-Autumn Festival 2 years ago. So while Qin Jiheng accompanied me to admire the moon, his thoughts were elsewhere. But even the most beautiful moon, seen day after day, becomes a dull stone. I thought, I have plenty of ways to deal with those two. But I, Jiang Ruoshu, have never been one to suffer wrongs silently. I whispered a few words to Bai Ji. Her eyes lit up. She nodded. And then she left. I stood by the window, holding a cup of hot tea, gently blowing away the steam rising from its surface. Since our marriage, I treated Qin Jiheng with nothing but tenderness and consideration. Perhaps it was precisely this devotion that made him forget his true nature, mistaking me for an easy target. But in reality, during these 5 years managing the household, I'd quietly placed my own people throughout the Marquis's residence. The very next day he feigned illness. I saw through his ruse. In a daze, I recalled our first year of marriage when I accidentally injured myself and sprained my ankle. Qin Jiheng was so worried he couldn't sleep for several nights. Each day, he would cool the medicine bowl himself, feed it to me personally, and carry me out to the courtyard to admire the flowers and bask in the sun. I was shy then, the servants are watching. But he looked utterly earnest. You are my wife. Of course I must care for you. Even when our hair turns white, I will still tend to you thus. How could one's feelings change so swiftly? I couldn't fathom it. Tears welling in my eyes. That very night, the medicine delivered to Qin Jiheng was replaced with the real thing. For a healthy man like him, drinking medicinal broth day after day would only cause problems. I feigned sorrow and melancholy, personally bringing him the medicine each day to comfort him. I wouldn't leave until I saw him frown and drink the entire bowl. My lady, this is too much hardship for you. I can't bear it. It's fine, Jiheng. For you, I'm willing to endure any hardship. Look at him now, after a month bedridden. His face has even plumped up. Must be all that pork knuckle he's been devouring daily. Qin Jiheng was suffering inside. But since I'd agreed to let him take Gu Qianqian as a concubine, he must feel some guilt toward me. Even when the medicine grew bitterer than before, he endured it. Seeing his pain finally eased most of the bitterness in my heart. Over the next few days, I watched coldly as the mansion was decked out in festive lights and decorations. And as my mother-in-law spent her own money to buy jewelry for Gu Qianqian, I never once showed any sign of displeasure. Everyone in the mansion said I loved Qin Jiheng to the core. That I was the most gentle, kind, and affectionate young mistress. As the wedding drew near, Qin Jiheng began putting on a show of improvement. My mother-in-law played along, feigning boundless delight, Ruoshu. How wonderful! The wedding ritual actually worked. I nodded in agreement, yes. It seems this void Taoist really has some skill. My mother-in-law hesitated, her expression telling me she wasn't up to anything good. After sipping tea for a while, she finally spoke, Ruoshu. Mother actually has one more favor to ask of you. Mother? That sounds rather serious. What is it? You know Qianqian's family circumstances aren't good. Though she was a great help to the Marquis's household in arranging this marriage to bring good fortune to Hunger, she was only given the status of a concubine. It's truly unfair to Qianqian. Mother was thinking. Since your dowry is so generous, perhaps you could lend some of it to Qianqian. It's all stored in the mansion anyway, it won't go missing. That way, outsiders won't look down on Qianqian. Hearing this, I nearly choked on my tea. A concubine asking the main wife for dowry items? That's truly the first time I've ever heard of such a thing. They call it a loan. But when will these lent items ever be returned? If I lend her a bolt of brocade to make her clothes, am I supposed to take it back to wear myself later? Besides, what dowry does a concubine need? To put it bluntly, after becoming a concubine, Gu Qianqian wouldn't even be considered a proper mistress, just slightly better off than the servants in the Marquis's mansion. Seeing my silence, my mother-in-law grew displeased, Ruoshu. Are you unwilling? I stroked my belly with a troubled smile. It is indeed difficult. My dowry is meant for the child growing inside me. Her expression instantly shifted from impatience to astonishment, Ruoshu. What do you mean? You're pregnant? The court physician was summoned at once. After taking my pulse, he confirmed I was 2 months along, with a stable pregnancy, with a child on the way. My mother-in-law's attitude changed completely. As for the dowry for Gu Qianqian, she promptly forgot all about it. She went off jubilantly to pay respects to the ancestors. After 5 years of marriage, the Marquis's household would finally have a legitimate heir. Truthfully, her consent to take Gu Qianqian as a concubine had been motivated by her hope that Qin Jiheng would quickly produce an heir of his own. But there was a world of difference between a legitimate heir and a child born to a concubine. Even Qin Jiheng, upon hearing the news, forced himself to come see me despite his illness. The look in his eyes seemed to return to the fervor of our wedding night, Ruoshu. I'm finally going to be a father. Watching him cough weakly, I felt deeply satisfied. Look at him now, that's how a sick man should look. Now, the only one in the entire household who might be unhappy is Gu Qianqian. Yet she must still force her usual calm, unassuming demeanor to come offer congratulations. Fortunately, the date for taking a concubine was set, just 3 days hence. Cousin, now that Sister Ruoshu is with child, you must be overjoyed. I imagine you've already forgotten Qianqian. How could that be? I only long for a child of our own. When the time comes, we'll register him under Jiang Ruoshu's name, and I shall raise him myself. I know you've endured so much for me. Cousin, rest assured, my feelings for her ended long ago. I will never betray you in this lifetime. Separated by a single wall, I listened silently as these two poured out their hearts. The man who had just sworn his loyalty before me now, mere moments later, was freely disparaging me in front of another woman. The sound of his voice behind me was too sickening. Feeling queasy, I slipped away quietly. Only when I returned that night did I remove the love knot Qin Jiheng had given me from my bedside. 3 days passed in a rush. Gu Qianqian wore a pink jacket paired with a pink silk skirt. her face painted with heavy makeup, making her look as radiant as a peach blossom. She offered me tea, her obedient gaze hiding a hint of defiance. I pretended not to notice. My mother-in-law smiled, handed her a thick red envelope, and sent her openly to Qin Jiheng's chambers. Ruoshu. I suppose Hang's illness will soon be cured. I nodded submissively, as long as Jiheng recovers. I'll be the happiest. Good child. My mother-in-law looked at me with a touch of pity, then presented me with a jade bracelet of exceptional quality. I gave a wry smile, feigning refusal before finally accepting it, tucking it into my sleeve. I traced its smooth, warm texture and found myself genuinely fond of it. Thus soothed, I obediently returned to my chambers to wait quietly. That very night, chaos erupted in the Marquis's mansion. It was said that at the crucial moment, Qin Jiheng suddenly collapsed onto Gu Qianqian and fainted. After the court physician took his pulse, cold sweat beaded on his forehead. Perhaps prolonged medication has caused some after effects. The young master's body has mostly recovered, he should simply rest and refrain from medication for now. Until then, he must avoid extreme emotional fluctuations, lest it affect his future ability to have children. The matriarch nearly fainted upon hearing the news. She frantically demanded, "What do you mean it could affect his ability to have children?" The physician wiped his brow with his sleeve, stammering hesitantly. Finally, under the matriarch's furious glare, he confessed, "The young master is still quite weak. Tonight, he may have used certain stimulants to enhance his performance, which exhausted his vitality and caused him to faint. He must now focus on gentle tonics to restore his strength." The mother-in-law's face flushed alternately pale and crimson. She slammed the teacup before her onto the floor. "Go! Bring that worthless concubine Gu Qianqian here." Once she'd affectionately called her Qianqian, praising her in front of me as dearer than a biological daughter. Now she referred to her only as a worthless concubine, proof of her fury. The moment Gu Qianqian arrived, she immediately knelt on the floor begging for mercy. Truthfully, this matter really couldn't be blamed on her. Qin Jiheng had been taking medicine for half a month, leaving his body weak and inevitably causing his impotence. He keenly recognized his own problem and naturally didn't want to show weakness in front of his beloved cousin. This was a matter of his dignity as a man. Thus, upon the suggestion of his attendant Yan Ping, he purchased certain stimulants, claimed to enable a man to battle tirelessly through the night. Unexpectedly, he faltered almost immediately. Worse still, he now required extended recuperation. Without proper rest, he feared he might never regain his dignity. After her mother-in-law uncovered the truth, she couldn't help but feel resentful. Unable to blame Qin Jiheng directly, she took her anger out on Gu Qianqian. If it weren't for taking her as a concubine, how could Hunger have been so foolish? Typical of a lowly family's seductress. Alas, Ruoshu, you are the one who is gentle and considerate, always thinking of Hunger with pure devotion. I comforted my mother-in-law. Qianqian is young and impulsive, she inevitably acts rashly and lacks foresight. The more I spoke on her behalf, the more my mother-in-law perceived me as docile, well-mannered, and magnanimous. Gu Qianqian was confined to her quarters and ordered to copy Buddhist scriptures 100 times. The 2 shops originally promised to her were instead transferred to me, presented as a reward for my pregnancy. Upon hearing this, Gu Qianqian tore her handkerchief in fury and threw herself onto the bed, weeping bitterly. The matter was too sensitive for her to defend herself publicly. She couldn't very well shout throughout the mansion that Qin Jiheng was inadequate, so she was forced to take the blame for him. The servants buzzed with gossip. Good heavens! The young mistress seemed so gentle and demure, yet she was so reckless in matters of the bedchamber. Truly, with this single incident, Gu Qianqian's once ethereal, gentle image was utterly destroyed. Bai Ji voiced her concern, "Madam, with the scandal growing so large, Might it reach us? I gave a faint smile. Did Yan Ping send someone away? Bai Ji nodded earnestly, of course. Madam, you paid for his mother's medical treatment back then. He was deeply grateful. After the incident, he received silver from you again and promised to leave far away. Never to return. No one knows where he went. Then it's settled. Back then, Yan Ping had actually sought Qin Zhiheng's help. But Qin Zhiheng was too preoccupied with his secret affair with Gu Qianqian to pay any attention. In his mother-in-law's name, he sent her a gold hairpin one day, then had an exquisite, fashionable gown custom-made for her the next. Each time he spent 300 or 400 taels of silver, extremely lavish. Yet I saved Yan Ping's mother's life with just 15 taels. Qin Zhiheng himself pushed that person into my arms. Yan Ping is a filial son. To thank me, he nearly banged his head to pieces. He wouldn't dare expose me. Truthfully, out of consideration for our past marriage, I hadn't intended to be so ruthless. But Qin Zhiheng shouldn't have chosen this very day to take Gu Qianqian as his concubine. 5 years ago, on this very day, Qin Zhiheng married me. Gu Qianqian deliberately had Qin Zhiheng choose this day to provoke me. Whether he'd completely forgotten or merely sought to please his cousin. Either way, it told me this laughable marital bond meant nothing to Qin Zhiheng anymore. So what was there left for me to hold on to? From childhood, my mother taught me, sure, a man's affection is like these camellias on the branch, blindingly beautiful when in bloom, stirring the heart, yet falling petal by petal in an instant. Never become obsessed with a man's love. Only the status and wealth belonging to your position as mistress of the household are what you must hold firmly in your hands. Though I was still naive back then, I took her words to heart. So while I did love Qin Zhiheng, I never relaxed my control over the inner quarters of the Marquis's residence after marrying in. Perhaps 5 years ago, Qin Zhiheng truly loved me. But that time is long gone. Swallowing the bitterness in my heart, I turned the pages of my book and casually picked up a snow-white osmanthus cake. Soft, sticky, and fragrant. Its texture was velvety smooth, truly delicious. Ever since this incident, my mother-in-law cherished the child in my womb even more, sending servants daily to attend to me with utmost care. The servants, eager to curry favor, competed to ingratiate themselves with me. They deliberately snubbed Gu Qianqian, skimped on her meals, and mocked her as nothing but a harbinger of misfortune. My mother-in-law, who had always doted on Gu Qianqian, began to turn a blind eye to this. After hearing the rumors so often, she even began to suspect that Gu Qianqian had cursed Qin Zhiheng. I wondered how long Gu Qianqian could endure it. But unexpectedly, within a month, Qin Zhiheng stormed into my courtyard in a rage. He flung a bowl of stale rice before me. Jiang Ruoshu, you've changed. Why did you send people to deliberately torment Qianqian? I thought you were truly magnanimous and considerate. A good wife. I never imagined you'd be such a jealous woman. Bai Ji was startled and quickly stepped in front of me, young master. Since the mistress became pregnant, she suffered constant morning sickness. She relinquished her duties as housekeeper long ago. This has nothing to do with her. I watched Qin Zhiheng clench his fists in rage, veins bulging on his knuckles. The last time I saw him this furious was when we went out to see the lanterns together. When that lecher made a lewd remark, he punched him straight in the face. My voice was calm, yet trembled faintly. Zhiheng, perhaps the servants in the kitchen were disrespectful to Auntie Gu. You may send someone to investigate. This wasn't my doing. Do you believe me? Qin Zhiheng only gave a cold laugh. Qianqian predicted you'd try to exonerate yourself like this. I was almost impressed you came up with new excuses. You're the most precious thing in this household now. Which servant would dare not cover for you? You even sold off Yan Ping, my own personal attendant. What wouldn't you dare do? I drew a deep breath, the last shred of hope vanishing from my eyes. I'd thought that after years of marriage, even if love had faded, basic trust would remain. Faced with Qin Shiheng's unreasonable accusations, I rose and dismissed him, saying Yanping was my mother-in-law's decision. As your personal attendant, he failed to care for your health and instead smuggled medicine into the estate. He deserved to be beaten to death. My husband doesn't believe me, and further words are futile. As I'm unwell with my pregnancy, I beg you to seek comfort elsewhere, with consort Gu. Perhaps my coldness stung Qin Shiheng. His eyes flushed crimson, his body trembling. Suddenly, he lunged forward, clutching my throat and roaring, "Now even you dare despise me. Is that it?" In that instant, I felt as if I'd fallen into an ice cave. My heavy body made struggling difficult. The air grew thin, and the terror of suffocation spread to the core of my being. Servants rushed forward in panic to pull Qin Shiheng away. In the jostling crowd, I lost my footing and fell backward violently. My child! My child! Fortunately, Bai Shi acted swiftly, throwing herself beneath me to prevent my fall to the ground. Even so, the shock sent waves of excruciating abdominal pain through me. Upon hearing the news, my mother-in-law hurriedly took Qin Shiheng away and ordered the household physician to examine me. "Madam has experienced a miscarriage threat," he declared. I prescribed several formulas to stabilize the pregnancy. For the next fortnight, you must rest thoroughly, bed rest is best. Upon learning the child was unharmed, mother-in-law pressed her palms together, murmuring repeatedly, "Good, good, good. The ancestors have blessed us. The ancestors have blessed us." The physician smiled and offered congratulations, "Madam. You are carrying twins this time. Your belly will be larger than most expectant mothers, so you must be especially careful." Twins? Joy lit up mother-in-law's face as she hurried to my bedside, clasping my arm. "Ruoshu, did you hear that? You must cherish these children now. As for that good-for-nothing, rest assured, I won't let him off." My lips pressed tightly together, pale and colorless, as I lowered my head without a word. Mother-in-law frowned slightly. Hung was incited by that lowly concubine this time. Combined with his recent setbacks in his official career, he took his anger out on you. Ruoshu, you are his wife. You must understand him. Husband and wife don't hold grudges overnight. Hurting you pains him more than it hurts you. She was truly unbearably chatty. I could only go along with her, croaking out, "Ruoshu understands. I would never blame my husband." I knew full well, Qin Shiheng wasn't worried about his career at all. It was clearly because of his impotence that he was tormented and restless. He was suffering every day, which is why he snapped. Only then did my mother-in-law nod with relief. "Very well. Rest now. I'll deal with that worthless concubine myself." Only after she departed with her throng of maids and servants did I breathe a sigh of relief. The air in the room even felt a bit lighter. Zidai noticed the red marks on my neck and began weeping until her eyes swelled. "Madam, does your throat still hurt?" I motioned for her to help me up. "I'm fine. Where's Baiji? Is she all right?" Zidai carefully placed a pillow beneath my waist and whispered, "That girl Baiji is always tough. She just happened to hit her back and got a bruise. We've applied medicine already. She'll be back to her lively self soon. Don't worry about her, madam." Both she and Baiji were my personal maids, as close as sisters. Seeing the relaxation in her eyes, I knew Baiji truly wasn't seriously hurt. Only then did a genuine smile appear on my face. Soon after, the pregnancy-preserving medicine was brewed, and Zidai brought it over for me. She scooped a taste with a small porcelain spoon, her expression abruptly changing. "Madam, this medicine tastes off. Something seems to have been added." Staring at the bowl of murky, dark liquid, I instantly knew whose handiwork this was. Even if Qin Jiheng hated me, His attack was a momentary lapse of reason. He would never poison our child. It seems Gu Qianqian had prepared this long ago. When she incited Qin Jiheng to confront me, she must have anticipated I'd suffer a miscarriage. Thus, she prepped the poison to strike amidst the chaos. Fortunately, Zidai, who'd been trained in medicine since childhood by the wet nurse, was prepared for such insidious schemes within the inner quarters. From conception to childbirth, a woman has one foot in the grave. How could I not be cautious? If she wants to play dirty, let's make it an open game. Zidai asked. Madam, what shall we do? I instructed her to soak a handkerchief in chilly water, dabbed it under my eyes, and gave her a sly smile. Sometimes, one must learn to feign weakness. Then, I had Zidai carry that bowl of medicine with me to my mother-in-law's courtyard. Mother-in-law was scolding Qin Jiheng. Seeing me arrive, she was about to speak when I knelt down first. My voice choked with emotion. Mother, Jiheng, someone tried to harm my child. Thankfully, it was discovered in time. Otherwise, I fear. Qin Jiheng had calmed down by then, but upon hearing this, he stared at me with shock and suspicion. I was always composed and self-possessed, rarely losing my poise like this. Even when I shed tears last time, I maintained the dignity befitting the young mistress of the home mansion. Now, however, I wept like a delicate flower drenched in rain. Ironically, this very vulnerability made my tears all the more poignant, stirring pity in others. Qin Jiheng seemed inclined to comfort me, but hesitated, likely recalling his earlier actions. Instead, I took the initiative, leaning into his embrace. His body stiffened slightly, only then realizing how long it had been since we'd shared such intimacy. Instantly filled with tenderness, he soothed me. Ruoshu, I'm sorry. I lost my head today. Jiheng, don't say that. You're my husband. I know you didn't mean it. But now someone is trying to harm our child. I'm so scared. Mother-in-law flew into a rage. After confirming the bowl contained tainted medicine, she ordered a thorough investigation. Ruoshu, you didn't drink it, did you? Does your stomach feel unwell? Hearing this, I grew panicked. I took just one sip before Zidai stopped me. What should I do? After speaking, I seemed too frightened and fainted directly into Qin Jiheng's arms. I truly had fainted, likely from sheer exhaustion. When I awoke, it was already noon the next day. Zidai hurriedly brought warm congee, and even Baiji had abandoned her rest to watch over me by the bedside. I smiled faintly. Look at you all acting like the world is ending. Relax. I'm fine. Madam. Baiji's eyes flushed crimson. After such a terrible incident, the young master still shields that concubine Gu. It was only after the marquise punished her with confinement that he acted. Is that so? I lowered my gaze. Zidai shared my sorrow. How could the young master have become so blind to right and wrong? I thought back to when he cherished me, then. Everything I did seemed right to him. Yes. How did things between us become like this? What woman, when she first marries, doesn't hope for a good life? But now, I've long ceased to expect anything from Qin Jiheng. I can't even say I'm deeply disappointed. It's almost a blessing in disguise. I waited 3 more days. The verdict came. It was an old woman from the kitchen. Unable to bear children herself, she harbored resentment and poisoned me. Any clear-eyed person could see she was a scapegoat. I thought, even if Qin Jiheng still trusted Gu Qianqian, his mother-in-law surely understood. She was merely trying to cover up the disgrace. What was even more unexpected was that Qin Jiheng had reportedly argued with his mother. Mother, Qianqian is pure and gentle. She could never harbor ill will. You've truly grown senile. His mother clutched her chest, tears streaming down her face. Enraged by his accusation of senility. You ungrateful son. Your mind must be clouded by pig fat to speak to your mother this way. You've clearly been incited by that slut. Qin Shiheng had always been obedient since childhood. In 5 years of marriage, he'd never once shown favoritism. This was the first time he'd spoken back to her. Now, she truly regretted it. But with events already unfolding, she could only maintain appearances for the Marquis's household. Yet, turning her head, she heard that her mother-in-law had sent the maid Qingji over. Bai Ji chuckled. Old foxes are cunning indeed. Now let's see how that concubine Gu monopolizes the young master's affection. Zi Dai quickly tugged her sleeve, casting a worried glance my way. Bai Ji fell silent too. Once, twice, and now more. Qin Shiheng's concubines multiplied, drifting ever farther from his vow. I simply stroked my belly quietly, whispering to the child within, rest assured. Mother loves you. What belongs to you in this Marquis's mansion, no one can take away. In that instant, I suddenly remembered my mother. I recall waking from a nap in my childhood to find her quietly shedding tears. It was shortly after father had taken his 5th concubine, a woman of striking beauty who, ironically, bore a striking resemblance to mother in her youth. I tried to comfort her, but mother held me close, sighing softly, my little Shuer. It's all right. I still have you. For you. For your brother. I can endure. Mother's greatest wish is to see you grow up happy. Mother's strength only became clear to me when I had children of my own. Then I understood that pain and resilience buried deep within her heart. Back then, mother chose Qin Shiheng from among many suitors precisely because of his promise. Alas, Qin Shiheng disappointed us all. Suddenly, hatred surged within me. Why should men be allowed to break their vows so easily? Why must it always be dismissed with a flippant remark that men are naturally fickle? Naturally meant to have multiple wives? Indeed, possessing a harem of women seems to proclaim their power and status. Yet if a woman were to do the same, she would be branded as cheap, shameless, and promiscuous. If she were drowned in a pond, the crowd would cheer. I will live my life with dignity. If they won't give me justice, I'll seek it myself. Qin Shiheng once swore, how could I be so blind and foolish to fall for another? If I ever break my promise to Ruoshu, may I be struck down by a carriage? I should grant him that wish. After Gu Qianqian was confined to her quarters, Qingji quickly seized the opportunity to gain favor. Like Gu Qianqian, she was a delicate and graceful woman, yet she possessed an added allure, especially with her stunning figure. Once favored, she resembled a perfectly ripe peach. Peel it, and its juices would spill forth. Gu Qianqian was furious beyond measure. She feigned headaches and fevers every other day. At first, Qin Shiheng would come to check on her, but later he simply stopped caring. Qingji was clever too. Sometimes she deliberately pushed people toward Gu Qianqian, her coy, teasing manner fiercely tugging at Qin Shiheng's heart. She'd say, "It's all thanks to the mistress's good teaching, reminding us sisters to care for each other. I know Sister Gu is fine, she just misses young master. I'm but a lowly servant, unworthy of competing with her. I only hope young master might occasionally remember my worth. That would be enough to satisfy me." These words sounded oddly familiar, as if Gu Qianqian herself had once spoken them to me. But this time, Gu Qianqian had become the petty, unforgiving woman. Watching Qin Shiheng's heart gradually shift toward Qingji, Gu Qianqian panicked. Her family was poor. Before, she had not only enjoyed Qin Shiheng's affection but also the protection of the Marquis's wife. Now both had been snatched away by Qingji. Gu Qianqian came seeking me out, but Bai Ji and Zi Dai blocked her, preventing her from seeing me. She had to find her own way. Yet as time passed, Qin Shiheng's novelty with Qingji wore off. Ultimately, he still preferred Gu Qianqian. Qingji, of course, refused to concede defeat. engaging in constant rivalry with Gu Qianqian. Qin Shiheng began spending increasingly longer periods visiting me. He would sit in my courtyard, sipping tea and reading books, occasionally stroking my belly and sighing, "Ruo Shu. It's still here with you that I feel most relaxed and at ease." He was slowly beginning to remember my virtues again. But I often used pregnancy discomforts as an excuse, urging him to visit the two concubines more often. The colder I acted, the more frequently he visited. Only then did I realize Qin Shiheng's true nature, a man who craved attention. 2 months later, more good news reached the Marquis's residence. Qingxi was pregnant, with few heirs in the Marquis's household. His mother and Qin Shiheng were overjoyed, promising to elevate Qingxi to the rank of noble concubine once she gave birth. That status was one rank higher than Gu Qianqian's. Gu Qianqian felt both joy and worry. She blamed her own frail constitution for her inability to conceive. Yet now that Qingxi was also pregnant, she was the only one left in the household who could still receive his favor. This was her chance. Who could have imagined that Qin Shiheng would begin staying away from home? Even when he returned, he only engaged in poetry and painting with Gu Qianqian, displaying the utmost refinement and elegance, without a hint of other intentions. I sneered coldly. A man who has eaten his fill outside won't touch even the finest delicacies when he comes home. I secretly leaked the news to Gu Qianqian, then had her slip out of the mansion to see for herself. She witnessed Qin Shiheng wrap his arm around that woman's waist, buy her a wooden hairpin from a street vendor, and personally pin it into her hair. The adoration in his eyes was identical to how he'd once looked at her. Only then did Gu Qianqian's heart truly turn to ashes. To me, Qin Shiheng had said, "Qianqian, it's the will of our parents and the matchmaker's words. I must take a formal wife. I have no choice." To Qingxi, Qin Shiheng said, "Qianqian, she was forced upon me by my mother. I too have my own hardships." But now that no one was pressuring him, he could be with Gu Qianqian forever. Yet he chose to keep a mistress instead. On the street, Gu Qianqian, losing all reason, rushed forward recklessly and struggled with Qin Shiheng. A carriage sped past. Qin Shiheng tried to flee but was held back by Gu Qianqian. Both collided with the carriage. Qin Shiheng's curse had finally come to pass. Qin Shiheng injured his leg, but Gu Qianqian suffered worse, internal organs damaged. Qingxi's pregnancy had been unstable from the start. It seemed Qin Shiheng's body hadn't fully recovered. Now, upon hearing the news, she had miscarried. Seeing her son's injured leg and the loss of her grandson, the mother-in-law couldn't catch her breath and fainted. I could only make arrangements while heavily pregnant. Gu Qianqian seemed to sense her end was near. She looked at me and suddenly smiled. "Jiang Ruoshu. I'm dying. You know, the living can never outdo the dead. After I'm gone, Shiheng will gradually remember only my virtues. You'll forever live in my shadow." She stared at my belly and sneered, "Do you know why you've remained childless after 5 years of marriage? It's Shiheng. He secretly laced your food with drugs, personally bringing it to you. Your childlessness gave him more reason to bring me into the household." My expression grew cold. The household physician arrived and asked, "Where is concubine Gu?" I replied flatly, "Concubine Gu is unimportant. Attend to Lady Ho first." The physician dared not speak further. He understood the dynamics of the Ho household and turned to leave. Gu Qianqian's eyes widened. I paid her no mind, dismissing everyone from her courtyard. If she didn't want to live, then no treatment was needed. Had she not spoken, I would have had her nursed back to health slowly. She wouldn't have died. In the end, Gu Qianqian suffered alone on her bed for 3 days and 2 nights before dying utterly alone. My mother-in-law didn't interfere with my decision at all. She hated Gu Qianqian even more than I did. Qin Shiheng injured his leg, but it was treatable. Yet when the court physician examined him, he discovered Qin Shihun had contracted syphilis. Not for nothing had I specially chosen such a lovely girl for him. Qin Shihun clung to life for 2 more years before finally passing away. His body covered in pus-filled sores, a truly pitiful sight. Since he was so promiscuous, he shouldn't have made empty vows, needlessly ruining my entire life. Fortunately, I gave birth to a pair of adorable twins, a boy and a girl. Having lost her son, my mother-in-law devoted herself entirely to her grandchildren, treating me like her own daughter. After Qin Shihun's death, I tried arranging meetings with several handsome young men, watching them stand before me, fawning and trying to win my favor. It was somewhat amusing, yet no matter how long I watched, my heart remained utterly unmoved, even turning queasy. I couldn't fathom, nor could I emulate Qin Shihun's ability to cherish so many simultaneously, merely for fleeting physical pleasure. As my daughter grew, I began carefully seeking a virtuous husband for her. But no matter how charming the young gentleman, I always felt uneasy. Human hearts are fickle. In this moment, I suddenly realized with a pang of sadness that I had indeed followed my mother's path, questioning the very notion of love. On her wedding day, I carefully admonished my daughter, "My dearest, never become lost in love. Love is too illusory. You must hold fast to the power and wealth in your hands. Only by cherishing yourself can you truly love another." She nodded solemnly, her clear eyes brimming with sincere anticipation for her future husband. I stroked her head, unable to suppress a tender smile. Indeed, how could one dismiss all genuine affection in the world simply because of one unfortunate past experience? I finished arranging my daughter's hair, placed the crimson veil over her head, and escorted her out of the Marquis's residence. In a daze, I recalled my own wedding day. Qin Shihun lifted my veil, his eyes filled with awe. He said, "Ruoshu, you are finally my wife. From this day forward, we shall cherish each other and grow old together." The end.